Yeah. All right. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Maybe. I think we are indeed live. Excellent. Well, here we are again. Third Eye Salon. Getting our ducks in a row. 1 second. There we go. So first, before we even get started, I want to reach out and say hello and thank you to all the new subscribers that have joined us from the Tyler Koala show. It was just amazing how that show just rocketed, and the engagement, the responses. So and all the people that joined us. So I just wanted to acknowledge you and say thank you from our heart to yours. Thank you for joining us. We're happy to merge our tribes and merge the love. It is one love after all. One love, hashtag one love. All right, so for everybody else, hi, I'm Kat Dujero. I am a psychic empath and psychic wrangler. And before we see who I've wrangled into today's show, I want to welcome you to the show where in each and every week, we take a deep and new look between the veils of reality. And this week, we are looking between the veils of the Zetas, known as the Ponti, and what they see as Earth upheaval updates. Well, it's called Earth upheaval right now, and disclosure. And I know disclosure. I'm doing great. It's something that we talk about on the show from every now and again because there's so many different takes and perspectives on it. So we'll get the Ponti's perspective on that. So this is the first time that Sue and the Ponti are offering this level of insight. So I'm really excited to have her. And I was just so excited to hear the content when we chatted earlier. But before we get into all that, let's say hello to my bestie, Linda Coulter-Burge, psychic, conscious business coach, and our hostess with the mostest. How are you doing, lady? We love you.
I am doing well. Bringing me back to sanity, being here with everybody is awesome. So I will be your live stream chat host. For those of you that are new, my policy is play nice or get out. We don't have a space here that is very tolerant of intolerance. So enjoy the conversation. Please speak up and have a great chat on the side. We'd love to hear things that you guys have had. Those who have had experiences with the Ponti, please let people know what that's like, what you have, help them understand what's happening and the outreach that they have. And those who have questions and, inquisitive minds, put that in too. It's okay. Being inquisitive and not really being 100% there is what this is all about, being able to explore those questions. Okay. So with that, I want to also let you guys know that if you miss it here, you want to catch up again at a different place, you can find us on Apple and Spotify. And that has been possible because of the people who have donated to Third Eye Salon. So thank you for donating to us. And so more people see this, make sure you hit the like button. We have to do those freaking algorithms that they have. So hit the like button so more people can see this. And because they still don't share us a lot, share us with your friends, okay? Share this podcast, share a group, help us grow our community. Thank you again, and join our Facebook group, Third Eye Salon Facebook group, and we continue the conversations there and sometimes see some additional back stuff. Sue's great about that, sharing some things there with us. And with that, hi, Sue. I'm so happy to have you back.
It's so good to be here. Oh my goodness. When I got the email and said, "What are you doing on Saturday?" I went, "Oh, good." And Kat and I got a chance to chat earlier this week and kind of catch up with each other, but also talk a little bit about some of the things that have been happening with us and with the Ponti and with our Sasquatch friends, et cetera, et cetera. And so we have this updates to give you and a little backstory to share for those people who are new. We'll catch you up a little bit. And this is my first chance in getting to meet Angela Anderson.
Oh, good intro segue.
And so, Angela, I saw this beautiful face and I went, "Who's this gorgeous lady?" So welcome and thank you for being host, and would love to know more about you as well. So we'll have to talk. But I will segue to Angela.
That's awesome. Thank you. I'm excited to be back this morning. A lot has happened in the last 2 weeks, a lot of transformation, and I'm excited to hear Sue's story this morning. You've done a lot in the way of research with the Sasquatch and the Ponte, so I'm really excited to hear more about those storylines and see where the Ponte sit in the realm of support for humanity at this time. So yeah, I'm excited to get into that discussion.
Yeah, it's a big story. So, and it's gotten bigger, at least in the spread of information, because we've been interviewed for a couple of documentaries, one that's been released and one that's upcoming to be released next week. So we'll talk about that as we get into things. Where do you want to start, guys? There's so much. Where's a good place to begin, and how do you want to go about our talk this morning?
Yeah, I muted myself, pardon me. Yes, so there is a lot to talk about, and I just want to say, if you're excited about any or all of this, please give us a thumbs up and support us that way, because it does help us reach more people with all the algorithms, as Linda was saying earlier. Sue, I wanted, just on a personal level, we won't get all up into your business, but I was going to ask you on a personal level, how are you and Otter doing? I know there's been some challenges. It's been a challenging year for a lot of us, but I know that you guys have had to push through a lot and kind of change some big lifestyle changes.
Well, when COVID hit, that was hard enough because we aren't 20 anymore, and Otter is definitely in the over 70 category now and has some other factors that made him aware that he needed to really hunker down and keep himself safe and virus free. So during all of that, he had a tremor that we didn't know what the cause was, and it was getting worse. And we officially got the diagnosis of mid-stage Parkinson's for him about 15 months ago, and went through some challenges that were pretty horrendous trying to get the right med combination for him, and got through that. And he was diagnosed with a sarcoma that was a very unusual one and fast spreading and deadly on his lip.
Whoa.
2 months after that. So then we went through surgery that way, and he lost some weight. And so we've been doing protein to help him put that back on. In the meantime, about 9 months after his diagnosis, I broke the inside of my pelvic socket. I didn't break the femur head. I broke the curved socket part of it.
Yeah.
And so had to sit on a live fracture for 8 to 12 weeks so that it could heal. And because I'm still dealing with arthritis and lack of cartilage in both hips, I am bone on bone and still rolling around in a wheelchair because I can't walk very far. And I'm a candidate for 2 full hip replacements. So if you put Otter and I together, you might get a whole healthy person. But we're keeping our sense of humor. We're still having fun every day. What I can't do and he can, we've traded jobs. And so the health challenges on top of everything else have not been small, but we're still working through them. And we're still keeping up and taking our time with things a little bit more. Everything's slower, but not lesser quality. And so we are blessed to have some very, very dear friends come volunteer and help us do the things that we cannot do. And that's taken a huge burden off of us as far as our quarter-acre garden and other things. So I still get out and do what I can in the garden, and I still, as you can see, draw. I'm sitting in my new art studio, and on the wall in the back are You can't see it because of the light, but they're all pictures of the Ponte. And then I've got another wall that's all Sasquatch, and I've got a third wall that I'm filling yet, and purchasing used frames wherever I can find them, and putting artwork in that I've been saving for 6 years, and there's a lot. So I'm picking all my favorite things to put up on the walls. And so the art studio and getting it pulled together is still happening, but I've got most everything in one room at least, not unboxed, but it's progressing. And so I'm hoping to have a gallery opening kind of thing soon.
Nice.
And need to update the gallery that I have online because it's behind. I've been preoccupied with a few other things.
Well, yeah, you've had a lot going on, and you've also been, one of the things is being able to, not say being able to, but being forced to sit all the time. Like I'm sure the creativity in terms of what you've been, putting out there has been really, you've had, like, what can you do? You can sit and you can make art, and so it's in that way, there's some channeling of your own coming through that way with what you see, how you connect to the Ponte and the Sasquatch and other star beings.
And to be honest, my extraterrestrial art teacher, Mim, has been challenging me to improve yet again in more shading and more realistic, detailed techniques. And so she's been pushing me to improve. And that's something that I can sit and do. And most evenings, I will sit next to Otter as he's watching TV and start another sketch. The only things that I need the daylight for is to fill in the right colors and the details, because working under incandescent light is not always a true color when you do things. This translation for the Ponte has continued, and our discussions with Tilcom regarding earth changes and other aspects of things coming up, and the Ponte sharing online about hard topics. Some of them has been continuing. We have a lot of new followers, and again, you spoke with Tyler from
Journey to Truth.
Yes, Journey to Truth. And I was interviewed with Tyler on Journey to Truth within the last month, and found that listenership was a very high quality, very educated, very good questions that came from the people that watch his podcast. And so I was pleased when I heard that you two had interviewed him. I find him to be a very, very intelligent young fellow. Very authentic.
He's authentic, warm.
Yes.
Well, speaking on this, what have the Ponte, like, what's been their main focus as of late? I've got a whole, land ghost of questions for you, but I wanted to kind of figure in, where's their current priority in terms of what they're speaking to? I know it's probably centers around earth changes, but I just kind of wanted to hear what they are really communicating these days, like their top messages.
They are watching this solar cycle very, very closely. This solar cycle and the next 11-year solar cycle after this one are on their list as high priority, because the output of the sun as our solar system traverses through this turbulent area of the galaxy, the chances of our sun's own magnetics. Remember, the sun has a north and a south magnetic pole, just like our planet does. But in history, when the sun's north and south poles flip, there is an output that's not kind to the planets in our solar system. The magnetics and the effect of this turbulent area of the galaxy strongly affect the magnetic balance of stars. We've seen that with Barnard's star. When Barnard's star went through this turbulent area of the galaxy, we saw it with Proxima Centauri, I believe. Yeah. When that star and solar system went through this turbulent area of the galaxy, both of those stars had huge sneezes of magnetic plasma and things that would be extremely harmful to planets and life on planets in those solar systems. Now we are seeing that our solar system's outer planets are already being affected. We're seeing the effect on Pluto. We're seeing the effect on Neptune. Those are scientific facts. We are seeing the tectonics on Mars increase in their magnitude. We're not sure if that is an effect of this turbulent area of the galaxy, but because this area of the galaxy is unkind to stars, and we are at a solar maximum, and we were expecting that anyway. They are watching our star for sunspot activity and its own magnetic turbulence and effects. At the same time, they're watching Earth's magnetics and the strength of our magnetosphere drop like a stone. It's dropping faster than anything that we have in our recorded history of the last 5,000 years. Granted, we might not have been able to measure it 5,000 years ago, but even the records in our rocks and geology tells us about the magnetics and the magnetic flip of our own planet. When our magnetosphere weakens, it's partially a result of our traveling North and South Pole, which are racing faster than anybody has seen for a long, long time. Excuse me.
North and South Pole are racing?
Yes.
They move.
The North Pole is racing towards Siberia at a pace that is increasing in speed. It hasn't slowed down, it's picked up in speed. The South Pole has already left Antarctica and is on its way up toward the western side of Australia. And if the two of them met in the middle, they would meet on north and west of Australia in the Indian Ocean, exactly halfway around the globe from the magnetic anomaly in the Atlantic that is now growing in size, and it is strong enough that it's affecting satellites and anything that flies over top of it. It affects the magnetics, the activity of planes and jets that fly over that area. Now, what it does, I can't tell you. I haven't researched all that. But because our magnetosphere is weakening, the effect on us and our planet is already evident. And here's what's going on. First of all, more UV rays and X-rays are coming through the weakened magnetosphere. You wouldn't think that's a big deal. All you got to do is stay out of the sun. But the plankton in the ocean that provide all of our oxygen are being killed off because of the intensity of the UV. In the first 3 inches of soil, the micro
organisms.
Microorganisms are also being killed off. You wouldn't think that's a big deal. Well,
It's
picture
soil
it across an
production.
entire continent.
Yeah, I mean that's the production of food.
It is. And
so
so it affects our weather too.
So there's a lot of, okay, because this is all news to me, so I'm a bit, I didn't know that. I knew stuff was going on. Like,
That's
I
a
knew
lot.
there's a lot. I guess I've been clocking it more with people's emotions and how people have been reacting, and how volatile it is for people to get. Now, including myself, I can feel it in me. I'm wanting to connect that kind of back to where we're at. And this is as a time of, because with death comes rebirth. And so I kind of want to like be able to latch that back on into where is this taking us, so people don't start to despair and be like, the ocean, the soil, you know what I mean? Like there's got to be a through line that brings us back. I'm just wondering where that.
So we've talked to the Ponte about all of these big changes, because these are the things that they've been talking to us about and monitoring, because our planet is going through a reset. And that's normal and natural, just like the reset that our sun, our star, is going to go through is normal and natural. And in fact, it has to do that for its own health. And our planet has to reset for its own health. And it's done so many times in the past. We asked the Ponte, if all this is dangerous, what do we do and how do we react? What can we do as Earth humans to stay safe? And the first response that they have is go underground. As many of you as you can, take and stockpile things and go underground, because for a while the surface will be turbulent enough that it will not really be survivable. And the whole ecosystem has to reset itself as well, because the weather changes will affect not only rain and areas that get too much or too little, but it also will affect the heat and warmth and melting of ice packs like Greenland and Antarctica. So the first thing that we'll be watching is our oceans and those levels rising, and the people on the coastlines needing to think about heading inland. So we asked the Ponte, when things really get bad and the sun sneezes or has a solar output because it's North and South Pole flip, what does that do to life on this planet? And they said, depending on how it sneezes, if it sneezes and we get a glancing blow, then things reset. We go into an ice age, but it doesn't kill off everything. If we get a direct hit, then we're in a world of hurt, and everything from the land to the oceans reset, and life starts over here. I said, is that dangerous for you who are in this solar system, but in ships? And he said, well, yes, very much so. Anybody who is in a craft and has a star do this kind of severe output is in danger. I said, can you stop it? He said, there is no star nation that can stop a star from this being affected by this turbulent area of the galaxy, nor would they want to, because it's natural and healthy for the star.
Right.
It has to do that reset. And as hard as it is for us, they can't help with that.
They're I've heard that before too, where they're not meant to. It's not their role to stop nature and what it needs to do. And I just kind of want to like tune into, because what I experience are like timeline, different options running through, and how, you know, different things can be. And I know, like, I mean, the earth does do this. The thing is, like, the earth does do this. We've had several floods. Like, when we had Paul Wallace on, he was talking about like how Genesis talks about not just one total destruction of the planet, but like there's several. So it's like, it's a cycle that it does go through. And I think that as humans, you know, when I tune into all of this, because there starts to be an emotional, like, oh, down, 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 everything's going to go to the shitter. But it's like, what I get is a sense of awareness. It's like, stay aware, it's like stay in your awareness, and stay like within what you're creating, and to not get into the fear, because I think that's where people can start to freak out.
Mhm.
And I really want to give everyone a sense of options of, you know, one thing is that for us, when some of us cross over and, you know, it's our time, a cataclysmic event happens of whatever magnitude, you know, and if it's your time to go, well, you know, for some of us, we're going to be popping back into our ET body, into our higher self is our ET aspect, that we've come down to do this specific work. And it's like, great, now we're back in our real body, you know, now we're back into the wholeness of who we are. But I just kind of wanted to pull out the different scenarios, because we hear so many different ones on the show about what's going to happen in the future. And do they lay out timelines or possibilities, like, here's what this could look like in the best, versus just kind of like death or more death? You can have death or more death. Is there anything that swings to the other way, where they give like a you know, other potentials
Possibilities,
that
sure. What the Ponti have told us is that there are hospital ships and habitation vessels lining up around our solar system, out just beyond Neptune's orbit, because it's harder for us to find them out there. And those ships are here to help the sentient nations on our world, and the extraterrestrial nations, the star nations that are here, that are right-minded, are attempting to help secure and save huge parts of our culture, so that our cultures survive. They have been very blunt and said, we cannot rescue all nearly 8 billion of you Earth humans. We also cannot rescue everything in the ocean or the other sentient nations on land, like the Sasquatch. Those nations, some of them, and the Sasquatch, have been through this Earth reset many times, know to go underground, know where to go underground, know what they need to do. It's in their history. The whales, the cetaceans, need help because their food source is going away very quickly. And so some of the huge cylinder ships that look like a big cigar tube, those silver or white ships, especially the big ones that are half a mile or a mile across, that are going into our oceans, are there to pick up pods of whales along with the water that they need. So they are rescuing the sentient aquatic life, and have been since at least since 16 or 15 or 16, when we started talking to the Ponti about this. That pace has increased, and the other sentient aquatic nations are being helped as well. And so the process of rescuing individuals takes time. It's not an instant, everybody's going to be saved in 15 minutes kind of process. That just doesn't happen. But what the Ponti told us real bluntly was that it's helpful for them to know the Earth humans and make friends, because they're not here to rescue all of our political leaders. Okay. They're not here to rescue the heads of state. They're here to take care of the people that they have deemed right-minded and made friends with. And so making friends with them in your own time, in your own way, puts you in a higher chance of being helped either to go underground or to go off world by our extraterrestrial allies. One of the things that we asked them about was, how long does this turbulent area of the galaxy last, and how long is the danger or to us or the planet, and how long does it take for the planet to kind of reset itself and be okay again? And they kind of threw their hands up and then said, it truly depends on the severity of the blow from our star to our planet. The chances of us having a north and south pole change, so that we might develop two south poles and one north, or two north poles and one south, or two and two, or flipping, has in the past come with a planet rolling over and rolling back. Weebles wobble, but they don't fall down, that kind of emotion. But when that happens, and it can happen in a day, a single day, but it comes with a slosh effect. And the slosh effect equates to mile-high tsunamis that cascade over our coastlines inland. And it depends on which way things roll as to whether east coastlines or west coastlines are in danger. So all of that we've talked about with them. I said, does that mean that if you rescue folks, they're going to be on a ship for 3 years or 10 years? He said, no. In a worst case scenario, it could be 200 to 250 years before your planet is habitable and out of the danger zone. It can be quick. It can be 10 years or less. But the chance of one extreme or the other is hard to predict, just like if somebody said, oh, we have a chance of tornadoes, how bad is the tornado going to be? You don't know. You don't know until you see the setup of the storm systems right before. And so they cannot predict ahead of time that severity, and they have to go with the flow with it, just like we do. We can ask and try and work with the unseen world and the collective consciousness and the powers that be, and see if we can soften this so that it doesn't take so long and isn't so harsh, while still allowing the planet and the star to reset. But if we had to be rescued on a ship, then it was a long duration. The Ponte and our allies know worlds that are close enough to ours that they could transport us to, that we could live on temporarily or permanently if we chose to. Now, there's no guarantee that those worlds don't already have sentient folks on them. People picture a world that's empty. Not necessarily, guys. It might already have an intelligent population. And they could be more advanced than us or less. But if they're willing to share their world, that's a big thing to ask of any culture, anywhere.
Yeah.
So
before we get into that, go ahead. I want to make sure. Yeah. Go ahead, Angela.
Yeah. So
that's a lot.
It is, right? It's really heavy, right?
It's really heavy.
if you get down into the details of the thing that is projected, right? There are many probabilities. There are several people who have different timeline projections of what's supposed to happen. But what I keep getting from my guidance is the focus has to be on accepting and coming into awareness of the true self. Because the true self is not this physical manifestation. This is just an out picturing. This is just the role we've chosen to play to learn by. This is not the true essence of who we are.
Right.
So if you can allow yourself to detach and hold to that true essence of self, then you don't get bogged down by the heaviness of the thing that is projected to happen. There are many things that are projected to happen, and there are things that have happened in cycles over the course of creation, right? Right. But it's the attachment to the essence of the true self. That's where you have to hold the true self. And then you don't allow yourself to get bogged down in the minutia of what may happen and how you'll be saved and how you'll survive and all these different doomsday, quote unquote, scenarios that happen. Yeah.
One of the things that it brings about that's really positive is it's really important in all of this to know that none of us can do this solo. None of us can handle any kind of big change like this without the aid of others. And the encouragement by the Ponte from the very beginning has been, go find your tribe. Go find the people that you trust. Go find the people that support you and love you for who you are the most. And help them be their best selves as they help you be your best self. And the more you accept people, faults and all, but find an ability to figure out who you trust, who's earned that trust, is really big. And building those relationships now is a really good idea, because finding your tribe doesn't happen in 2 weeks. It takes years.
It's a process of laying the foundation for what is to come. So right now, right now, everything is in transition, and what no longer serves is falling away. It's correct, right? It's out there. It's being pictured, and however you choose to embrace that, whether it's in physical terms or spiritual terms, it's all falling away, and we're being prepared for the new. So it's a call to operate in your authenticity, which goes back to that true essence of self, knowing who you are, trusting who you are. We are laying the foundation for what is to come, the new that is to come. So it's it's moving in that space toward the new. That's why it's a call to find your tribe, those people that you can surround yourself with, who are true reflections of the essence that you are at your core, and standing in that, because that lays the foundation that you are able to step forward within.
I'm agreeing with that 100%.
Yeah.
All of that rings true, and finding and staying in emotional, physical, and spiritual balance through a time period that we don't know what's coming. You can give into fear.
Right.
But the fear is a choice.
It is.
And adrenaline response is going to happen. But adrenaline goes into fight or flight. And the fear is the flight part. But the fight part can be proactive action in a direction that helps you and other people. And you can choose to use that as I'm not going to let the fear stop me. Instead, I'm going to proceed forward step by step with the things that help you gain your grounded footing again, and still accept the help from others and ask for the help when we need it. That's a hard one for me. That's a hard one for a lot of us healers.
Yeah.
So that need of finding your tribe, but the process of doing it, you examine what's really important to you about yourself, as well as what's important about other people. And so you find all of that being part of this process. We have to include our ET friends and our Sasquatch friends in that as well. I'm waving to my spouse as he's walking by, coming in the door.
Well, like
So-
this is part of an upgrade, you know, like I feel like this is the upgrade. Like people
The big one.
have these ideas about what that looks like, and you know, and not judging, but like sometimes it's like the upgrade isn't just gifted to you. You go through a process. Like you are the process of the upgrade, and it doesn't, and the outcome of it, what it looks like, it may or may not reach your fantasy of what it may or may not look like, but you're in it right now. Like all the pain and discomfort, that is the upgrade. It doesn't happen later or afterwards. You're in it right now. Like take ownership of your boat right now and stop waiting for it to be better once disclosure happens, or better when this, you know, when that happens, when I'm on the ship and they put me on the new planet, and then I'll finally be happy. Like, nope,
Right.
nope. Like it's today, it's right now. And
Okay.
and I wanted to toss the mic over to Linda. I know she's chomping at the bit. She's got something she wants to ask.
So there's a couple things before I forget. We had kind of a conversation, and I'll say prime directive.
Mhm.
Where does that concept fit in with the Ponti? And then the other part is just continuing this conversation of, I really like what you said about being proactive. For me, when I look at our life here on this planet, I believe that, you know, it is like a play. We've chosen parts in this world. We've chosen this play. And for me, I guess I'm probably a little, the way I said it in the chat is I'm a little bit more willing to be interactive in this 3D reality to make that change. So of everybody here, I'm the one that had the background in business and political science and philosophy, which just really messed with my head.
Sorry.
You know, made me a little cynical, but it also, you know, gave me some insight about how our systems work. And I think there still is a place for being proactive. And there's still a place for not acting out of fear, but acting out of choice and acting out of what you want the world to be, and not sitting on the sidelines. And I'm not saying anybody is, but I know there's also a tendency that I know I've been there where I want to just bypass this crap.
Right.
Right. And
Step
I want
over
to
our
rise
lessons.
above it. And I want, when reality is, when I see my neighbor suffering, I also want to do something about that.
Mhm.
You know, I want to do what I can to share that love in whatever way I can. So that's just my take on it for people. And if you want to reach out to me as well, because I know there's a lot of turmoil going on, I'm really happy to have that conversation with you too. So just leaving that open.
I really like what you said. When you see a neighbor suffering, you want to help. And you know, our interstellar neighbors feel the same way. And when they see us in need, while they don't rescue people from their personal lessons, and we've had a number of people on Twitter or Facebook get defensive and say, but I asked for help and they didn't help me. Okay. But they don't want to take away our personal learning lessons. That's not what they're here for. And they're not here to be our saviors.
Right.
They are here to attempt to save the best parts of our culture. The Ponti are cultural explorers, and they term themselves gardeners of intellect. And what they mean by that is if you're a gardener and you see a plant in the wrong place, you can either pull it as a weed, or you can say, oh, you have something I really like about you. You're medicinal, or you're pretty, or you grow well, but let me put you over here, and I think you'll do better. They're gardeners of intellect. They assist in the growth of cultures, not necessarily always just individual people, although that's part of it. But for the most part, they are here to understand and learn. When we get off work and go home and have free time, what do we love to do? Do we love to go see a show? Do we love to exercise? Do we love to dance? Do we love to do art? Do we love to cook? What do we love? And what do we expend our energy with when it's gone beyond the I need to earn money to pay the bills? That's the part of our culture that they want to understand the most, because it's the part that they find the most interesting, and the part that they're trying to learn what it is so that they know what to say.
Yeah, you had said that there was a preservation, like there, you know, it's like no matter what, they want to be able to preserve whatever they can, regardless of how things go. And so that's part of it. And that they're archivists, and they, you know, they take these information and they save it because that's just part of their gift to the universe as they archive. And I wanted to point out, kind of connect the thing about, you know, helping your neighbor and Linda having this, because that's who Linda is. Linda having that, and then, you know, the Ponte saying, you know, same, basically, is that, you know, we had the opportunity to now start a relationship and get to know our neighbors, our extraterrestrial neighbors. And this brings us into, we won't go wildly into it because we've talked about it a lot before on our other shows with you, but the whole telepathy thing, where you have the 101 telepathy primer with, you know, created with the intention of people learning how to contact their the Ponte specifically, you know, initially. And as opposed to, you know, come and save me, it's like, well, would you be like, I asked my neighbor to block my plumbing and they didn't do it. It's like, well, that's not their responsibility. They're your neighbor. And so for us to sort of shift our consciousness about our ET neighbors, like, that, you know, it's a relationship. Like, why are you putting this on them? Is that appropriate for you to put that on them? Do you even know each other yet? Have you said hello? You know, and kind of building that authentic community initially through telepathy. So when there is a physical encounter, you don't crap yourself. Like you actually know these people, you've had some relationship beforehand. So if it is for them to take you on their ship, and help evac you off the planet or whatever it is, there's already a relationship versus mommy, daddy, save me, pick me up, you know?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. The Ponte have done something that's unprecedented and has not been done before. And it began with their request to have a social media account. We'd known them for more than a year and a half when Tilcom came up to us and said, I understand Earth has something called social media. Would it be permitted for us to have an account we wish to teach? And when that happened, I nearly dropped my jaw. I had no idea where it would take us. And within a year and a half of that, the Ponte published for free a manual called the Telepathy 101 Primer. And the primer was written by one of their staff members. We helped translate. And it was designed to take you from where you're at right now and help you find ways to improve your telepathic reception and projection. And also included the beginnings of requirements for protocol for contacting them. So it was a little bit of an instruction manual to help you with your skills, but also help you know what they expect when you attempt to contact them and how. When that was published online for free, within 3 months, it was translated by volunteers around the planet into at least 10 languages. There's probably 15 by now. And people all over the world began attempting to contact the Ponti themselves and invite them to come visit them. And they began to have success. And then they got repeat visits, and they began to have their own dialogues with our friends from the Zeta Reticuli area and talk to them about their own areas of interest. And the new thing was that not only were people inviting the same star nation using a method that they recommended, but they also were recognizing who was visiting them and knowing their name. That was new. And that was because Tilcom, the first individual who contacted me, requested that I begin drawing him and then some of the other staff members, and then it expanded from there, so that the people on Facebook and Twitter would be able to recognize and call by name the individuals that had an area of expertise that they were interested in. And so they assigned me an art teacher because I hadn't drawn anybody in 40 years. That's 40. And so I had to start from scratch again. And I've never had a professional art lesson of any kind. I've had an extraterrestrial art teacher now for more than 5 years. And she keeps challenging me. So now we have this plethora of pictures of not only of the Ponti, but also the Sasquatch and other star nations. And they wanted to introduce the other allies visually so that when we see them, we won't freak out.
Yeah.
And when we see what they look like, we have an assessment of, are these the nice guys or not the nice guys? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been very, very helpful and an ongoing process that hasn't stopped.
I have a quick question about the artwork.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I know when I do light codes or draw light frequencies, that artwork carries a frequency. I'm curious about your artwork, if it carries a frequency, like, is there an expansion? Yeah, is there an expansion that occurs when somebody looks at that artwork?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
All right. So, and that's true of other things that the Ponti have instructed and taught us about also.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's in the chat and listening today, but there's a musician by the name of Kevin Estrella. And Kevin has been receiving instruction on inserting exactly what you're talking about into his music, so that the ripple effect forward from the listening of the music or the participation in hearing the music affects people in a way that he programmed into the music, so to speak, was intended. When I do pieces like, let me see if I can turn it just a little bit, like that one.
Yeah.
This is their dream teaching expert who instructs the other Ponti how to contact Earth humans in dream state and talk to them and what's appropriate and how to do it and length of time and all of the details about that. And when she asked for this, and when the other Ponti that I draw ask for things to be done, they choose the pose, they choose the emotional expression, specifically so that it is perceived in the way they wish rippling forward exactly like you talk about.
Yeah.
There's a lot of telepathic contact when I do these, because it's a back and forth process. And I'm always talking to them telepathically and listening for responses. And just in case I've missed something, after I'm done at the end of the day, I will set a drawing on an art altar and give them a chance to come overnight to view it and correct me in the morning. And that happens a lot. I expect that I make mistakes and I'm going to have to redo something. But the process of putting that energy
Right.
into a drawing, whether it's Sasquatch or someone else, is really important, because they want it perceived with the right vibe rippling forward. It's one of the reasons that I draw Sasquatch as they see each other, not as monsters. And on this side, you can see I draw their children too. And I don't know of any other artist who regularly draws the women, the children, the teenagers doing what they normally do every day. And just like our kids, their kids just love to play in the water. So
we had a question from the audience. I just make sure we get it in here.
Yeah.
There's actually a couple things, but Gerard asks if Radar ever got his hacky sack. Okay.
What I can tell you is that Radar knows how to do the footwork with a hacky sack very well now. He's figured out those moves partially because of his understanding of balance. And remember, they're on a world that has a different gravity than their home world. And so their ability, agility, and quickness are enhanced here in a way that they like a lot. And so
they're like little super people. They're like
yeah,
stronger.
it's kind of like you just do not expect this little person who's the size of a third or fourth grader to be able to lift you up, but they can. I didn't know that until one of the contactees reported it and said, he picked me up like I was nothing.
Yeah, Kevin talks about that. Like Kevin got
Yes.
picked up. Yeah.
Yes. So all of the stories that we are hearing worldwide from people on just about every continent except Antarctica now have been tremendous. And we encourage people very much to pick something that they love to talk about and know something about and carry on conversations with the Ponte and teach them. Because the more you pique their interest, the more likely they are to come visit you not once, but on a regular basis. The other thing that's new that we are seeing repeat patterns in is that the Ponte contacts worldwide who are receiving a number of contacts invariably get to the place where the Ponte bring some other Star Nation ally with them, so that there's a Ponte and another individual that definitely is not Ponte, but also definitely is not from Earth. And so the natural progression that we're seeing is that people get a visit, then they get repeat visits, then they eventually will bring another Star Nation person, and then that can lead to a second Star Nation coming in as well, or a third, or a fourth. So other contactees are getting visits not only from the Ponte, but others. And that's seems to be a natural progression with all of the regular contactees. And there are now more other regular contactees all over who have been putting out their own information on other social media platforms, whether it's Reddit or Instagram or a YouTube channel or whatever it is. Now you see a plethora of information because these people have had some intense interaction and want to help others with that. That also includes free telepathy sharing or groups that have formed that meet on a regular basis to practice their telepathy with one another and improve their skills. When the first telepathy group began, about 6 months after they started meeting, I got a free time frame on a Saturday morning to hop in and wave and say hi. And I asked a casual question, and I said, of all of the members of this group, how many of you have had personal visits by the Ponte? 100% had.
Yeah.
And they didn't start that way. So the improvement in that ability to communicate caused the groups and the group members to begin to receive visits. And believe it or not, Star Nations gossip with one another. And they pass information.
Oh, sure, sure.
And so when you go, well, how does this Star Nation know about me? Well, you can ask the Ponte. They likely talked about you.
Mm.
That is wild. Well, this is a good segue for the other person's question. This was Leisha. That's in our Facebook group. She wasn't able to be on the live stream today, but she wanted to make, I told her, because it's a great question. Would they be down? And this sounds like almost like the doorway to it. Would our Star Nation families be down for taking people before quote quote cataclysm event happens? Before that happens, to be on those planets, so there's someone to help the other people get acclimated, like early seed starters.
I understand what you're saying, and I have not had those discussions of prep people. We've had the discussions with assistants here on Earth so that there's enough contactees that are talking about the Ponte in a right-minded way that they can help introduce the right-minded Star Nations to other Earth humans. We're at that stage. But we have not yet gotten to the conversation of, would you ever consider lifting anybody off planet to either a ship where people could live.
Yeah, habitate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
No,
or planets that they have already kind of gleaned ahead of time as to which might be the best, because if there was a sentient nation on that world, they had to ask permission before they could bring off-worlders that were going through that planetary reset process. And so early seeders, that's a really good question. And for all the contactees and the regular contactees out there, if you ask and we ask, somebody's going to get an answer, and we'll share it as soon as we find out. Okay,
that would be cool. Because I think that, there's that fantasy of Earth is so crazy. Take me to another world that must be better. I think that's easy for us to get into, but no matter what, that's going to be stressful. If you go to another planet and you start living on another world, there's going to be all whole different levels of different stressful things. Oh, yes. But life doesn't go away because you're on a new world.
No.
Like life is going to follow your ass no matter where you go. You're going to learn your lessons.
That's right. If you came with a problem, you'll still have the problem when you arrive.
Yep. No matter where you go, there you are. So
there you go.
That's exactly it.
I have a question. I have a quick question about something that was mentioned earlier about the Ponte, about the Ponte being cultural archivist. I'm curious as to why, because we have the Akashic records, right? Everything can be tapped in from the Akashic records. But I'm curious as to what they are specifically learning from Earth humans, because they seem to be such an advanced race? What is it that they are learning from Earth humans, given our aggressiveness as a collective? What exactly are they learning, and what are they archiving, and for what reason would they be archiving it? Because my premise for this question is we are leaving those things that aren't in love behind. So what would be the point of holding on to anything that has been part of our culture that has not been established and founded in love, based in love? What's the point?
Yeah. Now, don't make the assumption that they're archiving anything but that.
Yeah.
Right now, they're learning our earth dances.
Yeah.
They're learning our literature. They're learning our food preferences and cooking techniques. They're learning the social traditions, the yearly traditions or the social traditions, the things that we celebrate, birth, death, marriage, adoption, and things along those lines. And each culture on each continent does things a little differently. We don't do the same things that they do, say, in Thailand. We don't do the same things that they do at the tip of Argentina. And so the Ponte here at this information station have jurisdiction over the northern and western hemispheres. And so that's the area of the planet they typically monitor the most. And so they're not monitoring or archiving, say, the art of war.
Right.
That's not what they're trying to do. They're trying to save the best of us instead of the worst of us. Why? Because they've found over time in helping other cultures survive cataclysms that if they still have something from the old culture that's really nice to bring forward and share, that people embrace that very strongly, almost like, you saved my favorite thing. Thank you. And it helps the two cultures because the Ponte love things like dance and literature or storytelling or food preparation techniques or trying different things or the joy of holding a baby. They love many things that overlap with us. And so studying our culture to find that overlap also helps give them information as to how could we introduce other star nations to Earth humans? What do these Earth humans have that's worthy of sharing, that passes muster, who isn't negative, wrong-minded, warring, fighting, hurting? What is the best of their culture that would help another species, another nation go, you need help? Come on over to my planet. We'll help you.
Right. There's a level of comfort in that because then everyone can see that they are not a threat.
Yes.
They are trying to carry the best portions of us forward so that in the event that something does happen, we have something to cling to, something to attach to, something that is familiar to us that we've known before.
Grounding cord.
Yeah.
In the new world.
Right.
I wanted to hop in here just because one of the things we had talked about was disclosure, and Angela kind of just touched on it, like getting comfortable. Getting comfortable with them, knowing that they're not a threat, and that whole narrative of, I mean, I feel like this conversation is disclosure because we're talking about having community with our star nations, our star brothers and sisters. But when we were chatting in our pre-show, you were kind of giving me some scenarios that you were seeing, and I wanted you to, if you'd kind of share that with people. So again, we're creating our future. We all get caught up in speculation, and we don't know because there's only this moment. That's the ultimate truth. We're only can be in this moment. But I liked what you had to say, and I think that people will appreciate where you're seeing how disclosure could happen.
Currently, disclosure is being increased in a soft way across the globe. And you have seen and probably heard of sightings and filming of ships in the sky of various kinds that has increased across all of the continents. People have cameras on their person more now than they ever did. And the star nations have gotten past the end of the treaty that they signed, the 50-year treaty, where they agreed that they would not allow themselves to be filmed. That treaty ended in August of 21. And so since then, there has been an uptick and a continuing increase in the number and types and lengths of sightings of craft first, but also we are witnessing an increase in seeing the number of different kinds of star nations being captured on film. And it's not like they're walking up to the trail camera and going, hi, but it is a situation where security cameras and researchers who are up in the forests filming Sasquatch might catch something else. So we are seeing star nations allowing themselves to be filmed more and more, and that will increase to the point where they can walk up to the camera and say, hi, my name is. So that's progressing. And I think I sent Kat a few photos of things that have been caught recently, even just within the past week, that are kind of interesting. I don't know if that's a good time to share that or not, but
we
you
certainly
sure can.
Yeah. Well, also, you were kind of giving me we'll do that next. We'll do that
Yeah.
next. But what you were giving me the other night, what you were laying down and I was picking up, was in terms of how that's going to look, where the false flag is going to go by the wayside because it's going to be more of a competition between the nations of like, oh yeah, we know ETs. So like, would you break that down for us, just because that was new information and I thought that
this
would
is
be relevant.
Brand new information from the past 10 days. Last week, we saw the United States admit to understanding and knowing more about UFOs than they had previously admitted, and that was made public. Within days, Russia had picked up the ball and said the same thing. Oh yes, we're working with, or we're seeing more UFOs and more activity also. And they publicly acknowledged that they are researching and observing UAPs or UFOs. Then China, within days after that, picked up and said, oh, well, we're interacting with the people on the ships. So they upped the ante. And not only are they seeing UFOs, they're researching UFOs, but they're talking to the crew. Now, can you imagine a scenario where China says, we're researching and talking to these people that aren't from Earth, and they're telling us all kinds of information that's really cool? Do you think the United States would stay silent? Or would they go, well, we've been doing that for 50 years. Okay. This has become a competition of disclosure. And there is no nation that is spacefaring, that's Earth human based, that's going to let another nation dictate what ET contact is like and with whom, and isolate it and not comment on it or not be involved in it. What will end up happening is if you extrapolate forward with this, and what the Pontees say is that because in North America, the vast majority of what Earth humans think about extraterrestrial nations comes from our media, television or movies. That's where or internet, the vast, vast majority of what your opinion of extraterrestrial craft or their occupants is, your opinions are based on Hollywood. That's where you first get it. Hollywood will also be the source of the spokespersons that come forth to introduce the concept of extraterrestrial nations and what they're like, rather than just the military or just spacefaring groups or private individuals or businesses or corporations. And so to put a positive spin on it, the likelihood of a false flag scenario, if one nation says, we're working with this really friendly nation, the likelihood that another nation would say, well, we're fighting everybody, is reduced. Does that make sense? So it would be very difficult for one nation to say, we're working with them, and another Earth nation to say anything about a false flag scenario.
Yeah, it's kind of like saying I'm friends with the coolest kid in the class. Well, I am too. Like, you know, everybody wants to have that
Right.
spot.
That's very true. Yeah.
So can I
Yeah.
have an update on the treaty and tell people what the treaty is for those that don't know?
Okay. The
Great
treaty that ended was signed in 1971 at a desert location that was not in North America. We think it was in the Middle East somewhere, but we don't have a specific location. That treaty had a number of countries from Earth that were already spacefaring or heading in that direction. And those individuals sat down with a number of Star Nation folks to come up with an agreement of, we would like 50 years in order to get our people ready to meet you. That was on a request from the Earth humans to the Star Nation folks. The treaty was contained information about not sharing technology with Earth humans, not sharing photos or videos with Earth humans. And so that 50-year treaty was signed at the end of August of 71 and was up at the end of August of last year. After the treaty ended, the Pontee were relieved because cameras have become so prevalent, trying to avoid them has been a mell of a hess. It's been very frustrating for them. And so now, while they're not buzzing down Main Street, at least they're not having to dodge cameras or altering people's equipment if they happen to catch something. They can let it be. Now they can use cameras to their advantage to introduce themselves at a speed that they're gauging Earth humans are comfortable with and not freaking out with. Does that help?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Was that treaty with all Star Nations or just the?
Mostly the Federation. It included the 7 major nations that came to our rescue in the last Earth cataclysm.
You know, you had said something about that when in our show, in our pre-show chat, and would you tell us who those 7 nations are and what areas? Because I'm
Oh
just like
boy.
so fascinated by that.
Wow. All right. So what I can tell you are jurisdictional areas that historically were in place then and stayed in place because of the people that came to rescue. I don't have planets or proper star nation names, but I can tell you what we refer to many of them as. So in Europe, the Nordics, the people that were tall, beautiful people with lighter colored hair and blue eyes, helped in that area of the world. The Umo were not here yet, and so it was the tall whites that look like a Zeta body type, only they are 8 feet tall with dark, large almond eyes and long limbs and stretched out, but creamy white. They came to help in Europe. The Reptaran and Nagas helped in Asia, from the mountains of Tibet area on down to the area of Angkor Wat and that kind of an area. They had already been teaching when the cataclysm hit. The Iya helped in South America, and the Iya are the elongated skull folks, where you see the elongation of the back of the cranium, like the Paracas skulls or like the hieroglyphics has. And so they assisted in parts of South America. Central America had its own people, and they're written about in the Popol Vuh. There's a book that's been translated into English. Popol is Popol, Vuh is just VU. But the Popol Vuh is the story about the Star Nation that landed on top of a mountain, came down, told the people beneath it, we're here to reteach you medicine, agriculture, astronomy, how to live in a good way without having to fight each other. There was a Pleiadian nation that came down and helped in the central plains of the United States. White Buffalo Calf Woman came down and landed just east of Devil's Tower and helped in that area. In this desert Southwest area, the Ponti helped. And in fact, the Zuni Native American nation still has in their history the stories of the ant and the spider people who met all of the survivors of the last cataclysm flood event. And they were at the mouth of the Colorado River down in Baja and walked these people, hundreds of people, up the Colorado, up the Little Colorado, up the Zuni River, and dropped people off along the way because they thought, oh, this is a good place to live. But when the last of the people got to the land where the Zuni reservation is now, at the border of Arizona and New Mexico, the Star Nation people had set up their housing for them. And they had housing all ready to move into. The Zuni became a very positive place for Star Nations, and they passed the word that, hey, if you need help, the Zuni are good people here on Earth, you can go to them. And in fact, one nation that had a ship crash here in New Mexico did go to them, landed all their other ships on Zuni land. And the two, the Zuni and the Star Nation called the Shalako, which is an avian nation, 11, 12 foot tall, blue feathers, black ruff around the neck, beak. That avian nation and the Zuni all worked together to help the crashed ship and the survivors. And after they were all done, they came back to Zuniland, and the Shalako said, thank you very much for all of your help. I tell you what, we don't have to leave until dawn. Let's go change out of our dirty work clothes and put on our better stuff, and we'll meet you down by the river at midnight, and we'll party until we have to go. And that's what they did, and that's in their history. So the interactions that the indigenous people had around the planet are still talked about in their stories, especially their oral histories. And if you ask them if they have any stories of people from the sky that came to help them, most continents will have multiple indigenous groups that were assisted in some fashion. Mm-hmm. So that's as much as I know for now.
Well, that's a lot. It takes away a big veil in terms of this whole lineage that we are connected to. Linda, you said your moon chakra was going wild in the chat.
Yeah. As we were talking about the star nations and the native connections and what was happening, my direct confirmation is always my moon chakra on the backside, just going bonkers, and that was happening during it. So love that. Yeah, that was just like all the way down, all head,
awesome,
front and back, down.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I love the body confirmation. Yeah. We had a couple of questions. Well, one was actually more of a comment, kind of posed as a question, but Christina was saying, is there going to be more postings on your Facebook page? Because apparently they're wanting more content from you.
Okay.
So I kind of, yeah. Maybe
Okay.
that's all right.
We
I
can do
think
that.
not everybody does Twitter, so a lot of
Mhm.
people only get their information from Facebook.
True, and I need to be able to divide my time between the two a lot better than I have been. Some of the other administrators of the Facebook page are really good about copying and pasting because they see that my spare time has been cut a little shorter these days from various reasons. But I try very hard to remember, but I don't always, and I'm glad that other people are helping pick up the slack. But I'm glad for the nudge too. And thank you for saying something. I will make extra effort to make sure that postings get both places.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then Pedro asks, are there similarities between telepathy and channeling? And I think the big answer is yes. But if you want to kind of break that down, I heard someone the other day I was watching a show, and they were talking about how channeling was really just like listening and relaying information, and I was like, no, that's telepathy. So what's your take on the difference between telepathy and channeling and how those are connected?
Well, all right. My personal definition is if you're talking to somebody else who has a physical body and their primary means of communication is telepathic instead of verbal, that's telepathy. That's not channeling. If you're talking to somebody who has no physical body and hasn't for a long time, and you are allowing them to use you as a mouthpiece, that's channeling. So if they are alive and in physical form, do you ever call it channeling? Probably not. If they have never had a body, would you ever just call it telepathy? Gray area. If it's a back and forth dialogue, I could see where you might be able to do that. But if you're being used as a mouthpiece for someone else and you're moving your consciousness aside so they can talk through you instead of you translating for them. I translate for the Ponti. I try and help them with their word choice sometimes, but I translate as much as I can, word for word, idea for idea, what they relay. I'm not trying to make it up, and I'm not trying to say that this is anything but their words. And we've been very consistent. I've been trying very hard not to put myself, my values, my own belief system, my own science or understanding to translate into what they say. So there are times where we have telepathic conversation and I don't follow it because I don't get what they're saying. And I have to ask them questions and they dumb it down until I can get to a level where we have a common understanding that I can grow back from there. So that's the difference as far as, or as close as I can tell you.
I think that's good.
It is. Yeah.
Well, let's look at those pics finally. We've talked about it, and I don't want to tease people. Um,
Oh, not
oh,
too much anyway. Just a little.
just a little bit. Just a little bit. Okay. Well, oh, there's a sweet question here.
What?
Cat Spiral. Is there anything we could do to help Sue and Otter? Anything they could receive? Thank you, Cat
Well,
Spiral.
that's very nice. Um, it it helps when we've gone quiet on Twitter and Facebook for people to not assume that we're avoiding it and that things are happening in our lives and it's slowing us down. Whether that thing is lack of sleep on my part, because Otter's medicine schedule involves waking up at 2 a.m. every day for me to give him his meds, and then trying to get back to sleep. And then when the Ponti come back after their overnight visits, they want to talk. So at 4:30 to 5 o'clock, it's like, is Sue awake? Okay. And have they woken me up? Yes. So if I go to bed at 11:30 to midnight and I have to wake up at 2, and then I have to get back to sleep, and then I have to wake up at 4:30 to 5, after 3 days of that, I'm dragging tail. And so I got to catch up somewhere, somehow. And
Yeah.
so the understanding of, and maybe even just the asking of, are you okay? What's going on? Is Otter okay? You've gone kind of quiet lately. Just checking in helps. Okay. Just not the assumption of, gee, they're avoiding the question that we asked, which we get a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah. And there's some questions you've asked enough times, it's like, okay, we're not gonna keep asking that same one. And you kind of have to select which questions you have time to ask for. And then also if you want to, if you want to support them, we have their links down below. They have merchandise, they have books. I mean, there's plenty of ways to support them that way as well. So, but yeah, just
We do have a Redbubble store. And I think if you look up official first contact, I'd have to look at the name of it, and I'll have to get that to you so you can put it in the link if we haven't given it to you before.
I think we've got all your links in the
I thought
down below.
so.
So yeah.
And then our inviting ET book is out there. Doesn't bring us very much money, maybe $2 a book, if that. So you have to sell a lot of books in order to make any kind of an income there. But it does give you more and answers more questions about personal contact, whether you're trying to contact them all by yourself, or if you're in a CE5 group of 150 and you want to have a big CE5 party on a hilltop somewhere. The inviting ET book is the handbook for how do you do that? What do you expect? If you're the organizer, what do you have to consider? And
You know,
so it answers a lot of questions and gives a lot of personal interaction by other people who've done it, as well as direct quotes from the Ponte.
I was just gonna say on that book, both Jillian, who was one of our co-hosts and one of our besties, her and Laura Holland, who's one of our dear members and friends with Jillian. When they were both reading the book, they both had this same experience as someone next to them saying, "Hey." Like, so they both had it while reading that book. So I just wanted to pass that along because I thought that was so cool. All right, tease no more, tease no more. Here we go. We're gonna start showing pictures.
Start with the old one with the person standing in the forest at a distance.
Okay, we'll start with that one. And then I'll have it set up so I can kind of click through so people can see. Oh booger, so they can see the.
This is why I pass it off to you, because I can't even do any of what you're doing as far as screen sharing with any kind of smoothness yet. All right.
Yes, there you go.
So this was taken by a Sasquatch researcher, and it came to me through Mark Abel's Facebook group. And when I saw it, I immediately recognized the Ponte frequently wear cloaks instead of coats. It's just part of their uniform, and mostly black. And when I saw the black cloak, I just kind of went, oh. And when I saw the gray head that was larger, I went, oh. And so this is one of our Zeta body type friends, the Ponte, being photographed while visiting their Sasquatch friends. The two nations are allies and have been for thousands of years because they share similar humor and thought process. So it's hard to increase this in size because it was so distant, and I only got a copy, not the original. Mm-hmm. So I took a small copy and tried to increase it as best I could. And this is one of our Ponte friends.
And you said this is Tilken?
I think it is. I believe when I asked the gang, Tilken was the one that stepped up to the plate, which surprised me, and said, sorry, but that one's me.
It's great. I feel like, all right, so then we'll look at this guy here first.
Yeah.
This is, you tell us what this is.
All right, so last week or within the past 10 days, this was caught again by a Sasquatch researcher who noticed that there was a face peeking out of the corner or from a tree of what looked like somebody with large dark eyes that was not Sasquatch. Okay. Mm-hmm. And they sent it to me and I went, oh, it's one of the Ponte. And the reason I say that is because not all of the Zeta body types have a small button nose like this. And that picture does. And if you're not sure what you're seeing, there's an outline version.
Yep. I'll just say real quick for everyone, here's the eye, just so you notice, like, here's the eye, here's the pupil, and here's the nostril part. And everything else is surrounded by tree if you're like, what am I looking at? So look at that and then look at that. And then that gives you a lot more clarity on
what's going on.
Coming from behind, because it's like half the face is hidden.
Right, half the face is hidden by the tree. And so this was one of the closest images that we'd had of somebody taking a photo of the Ponte. It was pretty clear. So we had another Sasquatch researcher send us something last week, and this woman needs to remain anonymous. So if you look at this photo, there's something weird about the back of the head. There's something weird about the front of the thigh of the leg that's closest to you. Her left leg seems to be missing. And then there's a blurry spot in the middle of her back that isn't blurry in any of the other parts of the picture. And I couldn't even see the front of her face in profile very clearly.
Right.
But I wasn't sure if she was turned partially away. What she said, and I know this lady, she said somebody else was taking photos of her with a regular camera walking across this field. They were out going to enter the forest to do Sasquatch research at the time. And so all of the pictures before this were totally normal. All of the pictures after this were totally normal. I kidded her that it looked like Google Earth had chopped her and put her back together wrong. She'd never seen that. We've seen kind of half chopped up photos of things on Google Earth where the putting together of more than one picture doesn't quite fit right. Mm-hmm. But this is not that, because she knew the person who had the camera, and they were flipping through the photos together when they both saw it. When I looked at it, I looked at the locations of the anomalies, but in particular, I looked at the back of the head. And I went, I've seen this kind of blurriness before when we've seen the Ponte cloak. When they try and use their cloaking technology or go invisible, there's this shimmer effect or fuzziness, slight distortion that happens when we see them walk by. You can still tell, if you're catching it right, that you've got somebody there, but it's a cloaking technology. It reminded me of that, and so I started looking a lot closer at this. And when I looked at the back of the head, I went, I think we're dealing with a Sasquatch walking right next to her, almost touching her. And when I talked to her, she said when she went home, she was nauseous and lightheaded and then got a bad headache. So the face of the Sasquatch and the distortion in the back of her head totally matched. And I think that there's more to the missing front of her thigh than I originally saw in the outline when I was doing this. I just did this outline quick and fast. In the distortions that I saw that looked like they were cloaking technology and wasn't a full picture. But if you go back and forth between the two, you can see what we're talking about. This currently is in the hands of my individual who researches photos for anything that's false, anybody that's trying to do Photoshop or any changes in the pixelization or insert information. And so he's looking at this right now, but his first take was, whoa. I asked another paranormal researcher if he'd ever caught this before. Have you interviewed Darrell Stokes at all?
No, I know Darrell from, I know him probably from you, actually, and
yes.
I think Barbara Jean Lindsay.
Yes, and Darrell has taken more than 10,000 photos, paranormal sort of things, mostly orbs and other things that he captures. I said, have you ever caught anything like this? He says, no, I have not.
Okay.
So
let's look at, now this, you didn't tell me about this guy.
This guy was captured on a security camera outside the fence of the San Antonio Zoo. So this came from the zoo and indicates what I believe is a dogman individual.
Looks that way.
And I outlined what I perceived, but there was a square or rectangle under his arm that I couldn't explain, and I didn't know what that was, and something that was dangling below his hand, almost like if you carried your keys.
Right.
Yes, right. That's what it reminded me of. Now, what was weird and what I don't get is, why is his posture not balanced? I don't understand that. He's not standing like you would stand, because there's a bend at the waist that shouldn't be there if you're standing upright. And he's not walking in a way that I would expect somebody to walk either, with that bend at the waist. So I didn't understand the posture. But even though I didn't understand it, I outlined what I saw. So if somebody else looks at the original and goes, oh, I get this now, let me know. I could not distinguish feet. Clearly, he had arms swinging like you see somebody in mid-stride.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that made sense. But it was almost like he'd stopped suddenly or stopped short to pay attention to something in front of him that he didn't expect to encounter.
I wonder if that's the extension of his hand. Like if this is his arm and then this is his hand. I don't know if you can
If
see
you
the
look at the
cursor.
other arm,
Mm-hmm.
you do not see a hand that's an extension like that.
That's true. It's
That's why I thought it would be likely that he was carrying something. But what that something is, could be the body of a chipmunk that's half eaten, or something else for lunch. Okay, we just don't know.
Wow, that's cool. Okay, and then you're saying here this is a leaked memo. Oh, let's I'll pull
Oh, yes. So this memo was leaked, and this individual was connected with the nuclear facilities in North America, the director of field operations. And what this memo says, and you can read it, I'll give you the shorthand, is attention personnel, when you report Bigfoot, Sasquatch, or cryptid sightings, you do not use the term Bigfoot. We use the term juvenile. So juvenile reporting means Bigfoot reporting. Okay.
Interesting.
And so there are so many Bigfoot or Sasquatch encounters on nuclear facility property. They have described the Sasquatch sailing over, jumping over the 12-foot tall fence with 3-foot tall more barbed wire on top of it with ease, even if it's a double fence 10 feet apart. No problem. They just jump. So their ability to circumvent the fencing has been documented, but they also have the nuclear folks don't understand why the Sasquatch are showing up. Okay. So that's the memo that lets you know that our nuclear commissions have been reporting these sightings and interactions long enough that they give it a nickname. They're juveniles. Make sense?
Interesting. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. The use of the word cryptid is incorrect. That's the first or second line up there.
So they don't have awareness as to why they're there. Do you have awareness as to why the Bigfoot are around the nuclear facilities? Yeah.
All right. So they get a chance to observe firsthand and report to the other star nations because they're on the ground and able to get into the facility with ease and get out with ease.
Yeah.
The same individual who leaked this memo is a retired individual who worked for the nuclear agencies. And what he reported is that they had been doing experimentation inside the walls on the Sasquatch's ability to detect or see things at night. They knew that their eyesight capability included nocturnal, but they didn't know how good it was. So they set up an experiment inside this double fence. And what they did is they had various lights of different luminosities, different strengths, from really strong down to not so strong. They observed through night vision cameras, military grade, that were really good. 3 Sasquatch 1.25 miles away. And these 3 were observing the nuclear facility and had been for a while. So the experiment was they tried turning on and turning off various levels of light and watching the reaction on film, on camera. What they found was that even if they turned on a light that was 1/10 of 1 candle power, so super dim, super weeny, the Sasquatch reacted to it and started looking at it the moment they turned it on from 1.25 miles away.
Wow.
And they also did other experiments that involved other kinds of night vision. I don't have that data. I didn't hear those stories. I just know that that was not the only experiment they did. So not only do they know about them, but they're checking on what are their abilities and recording them through scientific experimentation. That's what we know. So that's that memo. And I got that memo from Steve's site, the facts on howtohunt.com. There's a YouTube channel where Steve Isdall reads letters of Sasquatch experiencers and military folks, Sasquatch researchers, other hunters, other people who have property that the Sasquatch apparently live on, all have been writing into him to tell their experiences in their own words. And he's not a Sasquatch researcher, but he's reading these letters and emails out loud and finding the overlap and reporting what is not being reported by other people from those who've experienced it firsthand. And so that's where we got this, and that you can get a copy of this memo on Steve's, not the YouTube page, but the web page, I believe.
If you can find it and drop it in our Facebook group later, that would be awesome. And that
we
gives
can do
people
that.
Motivation to join our Facebook group. But we are getting toward the end here. We've got a mere 8 minutes left, and I wanted to make sure that I know it flew. Sue, did you have any final words of love, light, wisdom, healing, peace, etc., etc.? A good fart joke, anything that you want to share?
Well, I'd say people still have time to just download the free Telepathy 101 primer and put in the time to study. The Ponte recommends putting in 100 days of study before you really try to contact them and feel like you can get a response. Not that they can't respond sooner than that necessarily. It's whether or not they can hear you, whether or not your projection skills are up to par. And that takes practice and feedback like any skill does. There are free groups online that you can join. And if you go to the Ponte's website, officialfirstcontact.com or .org now, you can not only download the free Telepathy 101 primer, but you can see when the telepathy group meetings are meeting, in what time zone and from where, and how to join them. It doesn't cost you anything, and you can take things at your own pace. But when you make friends in high places, there are advantages, whether that's learning a new skill, like my drawing, or a new language, like Kevin Estrella has done with his tonal language work in the music, or had conversations on physics, like some of our people in Australia have had. All of those things are possible, and you can have your own dialogue and understanding if you follow the steps that they suggest and contact them in the way that they suggest and follow the protocols. I find, honestly, that learning about not only the Ponte, but our other Earth allies culturally has made me a better person. It's broadened my definition of people. It's also broadened my definition of human, because while we are Earth human, the Ponte tell us they are also human. They are Pontel human. Folks from the Orion nations are human too. They might be 10 feet, 12 feet tall, but they're still a variation on human. So learning that we're not the only humans in this galaxy has been kind of different, but kind of wondrous at the same time. And it helps to know that genetically we have cousins out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
We got family out there.
That's right.
So I'm ready to meet some of my cousins.
Yeah, gosh, I have that big ache in my heart as well. Thank you so much, Miss Sue. I'm going to switch us into gallery view, or Brady Bunch style, as I like to call it, so everyone will be able to see us. And we're going to toss the mic to Miss Linda so we can start our gratitudes.
Yes.
As always, thank you everyone for the fabulous conversations we've had on the side. Great questions today. Loved the questions that we had. And Sue, everyone is saying how wonderful you look.
Oh,
so yeah,
you.
there's a lot of comments on that. Just wanted to say that, you're shining even during times that can be tough. And that's really a testament to you.
That's
So
the advantage
you.
of the white hair. It gives me a little bit of a halo. Thank you, grandmother.
Love that you came, and can't wait for you to continue on this conversation and the insights also. And if you've gotten enjoyment out of this, information out of this, want to share this with your friends, please do. Please share this, send it in a message to someone that you want to expand their consciousness with. Also, hit that like button so that, again, those algorithms can find us, because, it's YouTube.
Well put.
And send love and light to Sue and Rev Otter and to everyone who's struggling. Just offer that love to the community in the world and the universe and the galaxy and beyond. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kat. And again, thank you everyone for your requests. We had a request of ways to contribute, and right now that's through coffee, and that's in our links below. So thank you. Really appreciate that. And with that, Kat, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right, thank you, lady. So yeah, I think Linda hit it all, except for our guest next week is going to be, I think it's going to be Barbara Jean Lindsay.
Oh, nice.
I'm going to wrestle her down. No, I've chatted with her earlier this week, and we haven't had her on the show for a while. If you caught our show with Barbara Jean before, it's a show where Linda actually channels Sekhmet accidentally.
Nice.
Accidentally. Yeah,
she was like,
that was an interesting one. Yeah.
Yeah, it was
invited
really...
back. Just saying, it was fun. I said, I'm inviting Sekhmet back.
Inviting Sekhmet back. Yeah, maybe we'll have a channeling part 2. That would be awesome. So we'll ideally we'll have Barbara Jean on, but if you're in our Facebook group, you'll know that for sure when we know. Other than that, we just want to say that we love you. Please be oh so kind to yourself. The planet's insane right now. Be gentle with yourself and be gentle with others, and just give everyone their space. None of us have all the answers. We're all doing our best, so let's just give everyone room to breathe and figure it out. All right. Till next week, we love you. Take care of yourself. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.